Hello, welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video. It has been a while since we talked about Pax Dei, and believe me, this one is gonna make some people mad, but please hear me out. So, Pax Dei has been out in early access for a few months, and as you can see, we moved our base to a hillside in order to make better use of the area one plot gives us. This is where we stopped. As you can see, it is unfinished, just like the game, unfinished. We decided to move, and then everybody stopped playing the game. The reason is very simple: there is not enough content in the game. In the last few months, they released a number of patches, majorly content lacking. So the major patches were bug fixes, and the biggest content update we got were a few drop rate increases or different drops, recipe fixes, and labels for our crates. Now, there has been content promised, and this content is the so-called autumn content patch. This content will be coming very soon. So what content they have promised? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Let's exit the game and let's go through the upcoming planned changes for this so-called autumn content patch. The first one is combat changes. Hallelujah, let's go. Character movement. So the major change is that running will be the default movement speed and not walking. Swimming will be less taxing. So if you recall, when you swim in Pax Dei, you spend stamina, and falling damage will be refactored. Okay, very nice. Melee combat. So you will automatically face a target when in combat. You will able to interrupt melee attacks. Weapon animations will be retimed. You will be able to aim attacks up or down, and hit detection will also be improved. So as if you recall in my last video, when we were fighting mobs, the animations and the hit boxes of the mobs were like all over the place. It felt like you were hitting thin air. It was also really hard to tell when a mob was attacking you, and when you were hitting a mob, you did not feel like you were hitting something. Also, blocking attacks was very hard because the animations from the attacking mob was non-existent. Blocking will also be more meaningful, which means when you hold the block attack, stamina will not be regenerated. Then for spellcasting, for spellcasters, spell targeting will be reworked. You will be able to cancel your spellcasting. They will introduce casting bars, and we will add early game spells. And then for enemies, we'll have their attack animations revisited, so we can be able to properly block an incoming attack and see clearly when it is happening. And they will also rework the nameplates. So that are some nice changes. The second feature this content patch will introduce is the journal. So the key feature of these journals are unlocking recipe tracking, ingredient overview, unlock notifications, interactive ingredients, sorting and filtering, and receipt pinning. So this is just a quality of life feature. You will be able to see what you can craft. This should have been in the game since launch. The last feature is the world of Pax Dei is changing. They are reshaping the world, adding more features like the structures, determining the roads more. The home valleys so far have felt real closed in. They were surrounded by huge mountain ranges, and the transition from home valley to open world was going on a hike for half an hour until you reached the dangerous sides of the world. So by bringing the valleys down, they create a more open feeling and a better transition between home valley and open world. This also allows the developers to avoid people closing in of people creating bases in the transition areas. So then you have more like an open world effect like we see in this image. They are also adding landscape art and different elements related to the lore. So this are all good improvement that should have been in the game since release, because they give a better feeling of an open, alive world. Now, these improvements even welcome, there is an issue. Now, the content release is too slow for Pax Dei. Since my last video, I have not touched or played Pax Dei at all. What does this mean? Well, for an obvious answer, there's not enough content to keep players engaged. Let me explain. I have played a lot of MMORPGs. I started with Lineage 2 when I was 14. You can see it playing here in the background. Oh boy, those were some good times. Just listen to the music of the game. It's amazing. Just for the music it's worth playing. Making an MMORPG is a challenge. I admire all the companies trying to make the new big MMO, the so-called WoW killer. But most of them fail even before they make it to release. Just to name a few: Gloria Victus, Crowfall, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, Blast Online. And to be honest, in some cases, just like Crowfall, which we see here on screen, we should have seen it coming. But we are so desperate for the new big thing, for the new experience, for that fresh release. For God's sake, in the case of Crowfall, look at this. He was writing it on a piece of paper every month. He didn't even bother to create a template. So what happens? What is the problem with this new MMORPGs? Well, the biggest challenge a company has when making an MMO is to compete with the other games in the market and not run out of money before they can implement all the features. So they mostly start by crowdfunding the game, and then they are faced with two options. Option 1, release the game in early stage, feature incomplete, a testing phase with different tiers or packages in order to get some quick extra funding from all us Scorpion inhalers. Or option 2, such an aggressive cash up that makes Mordor seem like a nice place to plan your next vacation to. Microtransactions and power related sales, minor or major, impact the gameplay. In the worst case scenario, they will do both. In the case of Pax Dei, they went for option 1. And yes, they grabbed some quick cash and can breathe for a little bit. But at what cost? Let me show you. As you can see, it is going down on a steady rate. This is the result of going in early access with all the features incomplete and a slow patch cadence. They stated, and I quote, "Was the early access release too early? Maybe. Although, as we stated, this is an early access in a very real sense of the term. A beta for our game, and we never intended to have everything available on day one. We need to validate some of the assumptions we had before starting to introduce key features, and that was always going to take time." Now, I'm still convinced they don't get the terms of alpha, beta or early access, but here's my opinion on Pax Dei. Pax Dei is an alpha, and even with the small team they have and them asking for patience, in today's market the consumer doesn't have patience. There are new games releasing content quicker than they can play it, and nobody has time to wait. What I would have advised is, after the alpha 2, go into a dark period, grind those features out, rely on the feedback and start implementing them for a later alpha or early access beta. Hype of the player base would have been maintained, and a small updates would have had major impact than what they have now. Basic features like trade, looking for group or events are coordinated from the Discord for people with the founder's role. Had this been implemented from the day the game released, we would have another game in our hands today. As a fan of the genre, it is sad to see this new MMO with such great ideas slowly lose their player base because people lose interest. I am rooting for Pax Dei, but at this moment it is lacking the spark I need to keep playing it. Now, what can you expect from the channel? I have been playing WoW Retail without stop since Dragonflight, and I will now be playing The War Within, and I am also interested in Final Fantasy XIV. Throne and Liberty has released earlier this month, and I have been playing it for the last few weeks. As these are bigger games with more YouTubers covering it, I will focus on releasing quality content over abundance. Until then, thank you for watching, and as always, let's keep gaming.